Okay, I'd say let me just try one thing. I will pull this take through no matter what. I won't do any retakes and so on, and then we will just see. So I will see things a little bit more loose because I kind of want to make the reviews a little bit more casual again, just for me to be more enjoyable, and I think maybe also for you, because I felt the last ones were just a little bit too dry, maybe less bloopers, but hey, come on, we are here for the fun and for the information that you will get on my review of the Huawei P10 Plus. And since quite a lot of you have been asking for that, you will get the detailed comparison with the Huawei Mate 9. But in this video, I actually want to focus more on the comparison with the Huawei P10, because the Plus is not just bigger, it is in general the overall better phone. But by how much, and if that's worth the upgrade for you, we will see. So let's just jump into the design. Personally, that's always something that you have to decide, but I think it looks nice, but not something really super exciting anymore, because it looks like quite a lot of phones these days. But just in terms of build quality, superb, super sturdy, amazing button click, great volume feedback and so on. So I absolutely love that. What I also like is that the sides have a slight little curve and they are quite grippy, which makes the phone very comfortable to hold. The back can be slippery, but sometimes is grippy. That's just a metal thing in general. But what you will see, it picks up quite a lot of fingerprints. But an issue that is only for me on the front, because yes, I know there is supposed to come a fix for the oleophobic coating, but on mine it's still not there, and therefore it attracts so many fingerprints, and it's just so hard to clean off, and therefore just feels a little bit drier and not that smooth in terms of scrolling. But for everyone, and I know that, who uses screen protectors or a tempered glass, you will be fine. So I just pointed out as a flaw from my standpoint. Otherwise though, what I have to point out is that the phone feels way more manageable than I would have expected for a 5.5 incher, because let's compare with something quite similar in terms of overall specs, because the battery is a little bit bigger, but it's also a 5.5 incher. So let's just see. Yes, it is taller, because the P10 Plus is one of the taller phones out there, but as you can see, it's noticeably thinner and also narrower. And with the curves on the sides, it is so nice and comfortable to hold, but also quite manageable even in one-hand for one-hand usability, which actually surprised me quite a lot. There is not really any 2.5D glass, because you actually feel a little bit of a border here. But other than that, let's just check what we have. Here we have the LED, dual cam. Here we have the IR blaster, the microphone, and on the left side SD card and SIM card tray. On the bottom, USB Type-C, on the left the headphone jack with the microphone on the right, and the speaker for the bass and mids on the bottom right, and the one on the earpiece for the highs. There is also a notification LED and the fingerprint reader. But before I'm going into that, I want to just point out once again how great the placement of those buttons is. Very easy and convenient to reach. They just feel amazing, and pretty much the best that you can do here in that regard. And also for the fingerprint reader, because this is, in my opinion, not just the fastest fingerprint reader out there, also the most reliable, but it also comes with the fastest screen turn on time, because as you can see, it pretty much instantly turns on, which is not something very common, because many fingerprint reader out there are fast, but the screen doesn't always turn on that fast, and that's why I like it a lot. But I would say otherwise, as you can also see now with the screen on, bezels are absolutely moderate. But let's get into the display. The only thing that you can change is the color temperature, which in my opinion is fine though. And if we talk about the display, Quad HD display, 5.5 inches, but IPS, and for a device of this price range, I would have expected less IPS glow, because I've seen most of the Huawei phones this year have a noticeable IPS glow. That's not an issue with these kind of viewing angles, but just on diagonals, so keep it in mind, because otherwise the viewing angles are stable. Maximum brightness was also one of the better ones with 560 lux, white point was great, black otherwise, besides the IPS glow, also very good. But I have to say, the calibration is once again quite spot on from my standpoint, because it looks so nice. But I also have to say, it's not quite a mind-blowing device, because yes, Quad HD, high resolution and so on, you just notice that due to the IPS glow and some things, it's maybe not the highest quality high-end display, because I think something like the Huawei Mate 9 display still knows me to impress a little bit more. So it's still a top-notch flagship phone display, but there is not much but a little bit more room for improvement. But let's get into the speaker. Yep, I'm absolutely satisfied with this speaker because it's quite loud, maybe not super loud, and I will give it as a whole a really good. Just not quite the very good yet because the one on the Mate 9 is noticeably better still, and I gave that one a very good. But otherwise, I like the clarity of the sound. Maybe could be a little bit richer, but it's not thin or weak, so overall nice balance, especially since it sounds quite nice, high quality, and we have some halfway front-facing stereo arrangement. Headphone jack though, not quite as good, because I still think it is a little bit more on the average side. And before anyone starts to ask what that is, what I mean by that is that pretty much 90% of all the phones out there that are not kind of advanced phones in terms of headphone jack quality just sound as good. So let's get into the performance and kill off all apps. And you can already see 6 gigs of RAM here, and that means crazy good multitasking, and yes, it does. So all is good here. And also, as you can also see already, the launch times are absolutely quick, and it's a very responsive device. I've seen a few more responsive ones by these days, but this definitely knows to deliver because it's on a very high end level after all. And if we wait for the rendering, you can also see that the browsing is super smooth. There is pretty much little to no lag, and it is pretty much on top with the like 5 best phones in terms of performance there, because it is very reliable, very smooth. In this case, actually not that much of screen motion blur that we usually see on IPS displays. And yeah, as you can see, sometimes there is a little bit of lag, but that's something you could talk the whole day about. And I know there is a lot of controversy about this device because of the different RAM that they used and storage devices. I won't really go that much into that because I don't think you will notice that in normal use, because whenever I use it, it feels superb in terms of speed. The multitasking was nice. The device feels very lightweight, and the overall experience is just absolutely great. So why should I bother about things that I don't usually see as a mainstream consumer from sorry, that standpoint? And the same also goes for the gaming experience. Maybe not quite as good, because due to the higher resolution, it just tends to have some more frame drops and frame skips, maybe some slowdowns, but generally you get very high frame rates, playable at all times. Even the more demanding games you can enjoy very nicely. But what you will notice, and not just in gaming, is since the device is quite thin, the device gets a little bit warmer even in normal use already. Not hot at all, but just something to keep in mind. So it could at some point maybe throttle, but I didn't see anything of that, and I wouldn't bother too much about it. A thin device out of metal just tend to get warmer, but that is what it is. So let's get into the battery, because it's actually a little bit of a mixed bag. Not quite so much because yet of the charge time, because 1 hour and 55, which is weird. I get that, because something like the Huawei Mate 9 for me charges in 1 hour and 40, which is faster even though it has the bigger battery and it comes with the same charger. So I'm not quite so sure what that is all about. So maybe it will improve, maybe something is weird, because also my Huawei P10 that has an even smaller battery than the P10 Plus charged even slower. So I don't know quite what it is about. So don't take this as a 100% value. But 14% I think it was for 1 hour of YouTube is not that great. That's maybe about average. But the problem for me is now the battery life, especially on Wi-Fi. But let's talk about mobile data first, because here I actually still got 5 great hours of screen on time, which is absolutely top. And it is noticeably better than on the P9. But the thing is that it's not just as consistent on Wi-Fi, because on Wi-Fi I noticed, and especially on all EMUI devices since EMUI 5 and also Nougat, the standby drain is very flaky, and there I got sometimes values of 2% per hour in standby drain, which is just not acceptable. I don't know what it is, because my setup is the exact same on every review unit, and I've noticed it on some other phones not being all that great, but it's particularly bad on EMUI devices. They kind of need to fix this, and that's why I would actually already like to say, let's talk about the software, because the battery as it is, at least great on mobile data, and still, even though just okay on Wi-Fi. But let's talk about this software that I want to talk about. Let's actually get 2 things out of the way first. That is the first thing, like I said, the standby drain. It's very flaky. I don't really know why, because I did all the best to kind of try to, because I know you can kind of kill all the apps once you close the screen, and I have already running all the ones that I need and nothing else. But there is another issue. As you can see here now, this browser did dim. And if I see, as you can see here, now it dims again. Now it brightens up. And I got a fix for that. I will post maybe in a separate video, because I can, with this workaround, live with that, but it's still not okay. And it seems to be a bug that happens in some apps. Also, for example, here in Solid Explorer and also in Gmail. Quite annoying. But let's get to the actual software. What we have now is the option to have an app drawer. What we also still have, that is actually quite handy, but I never really think about it and forget it. Kind of quick shortcuts to the calculator and some other things. Then we have, of course, the customizable quick settings. And now we also recently got the theming engine working properly again. And then, of course, we have options like the notification key here with carrier name, battery percentage, and so on. There is a lot of things to talk about the notifications itself, but not really want to go into that. Of course, as you can see, you can use the on-screen buttons disabled and then use just the button, but I personally didn't found that way to be that handy. Of course, we have knuckle gestures, for example, to launch dual apps and so on, and a few other things, because as you can see, you can also launch kind of apps with these. I didn't really set that up, but it would work, and that's pretty much all I can say. So it is a way nicer looking software by now. It still has some quirks, like I said, the screen dimming and the standby drain, but other than that, it's solid. And once they fix this, it would be actually a very good software again. But as what it is right now, it's a mixed bag. So let's get into the next thing, camera. Selfies first. As you can see, the outcomes is really, really nice. The outcomes, that sounded wrong, and it was. But you can also see that we have autofocus on the front-facing camera, which is great, but it is a little bit lazy. So sometimes just maybe wait a little bit once you are in focus, because then you will get great sharpness, a lot of nice details, maybe a little bit more contrast and saturation would have been nice, but even indoors it manages to be very nice and sharp. And even on video you will see this. This is actually really impressive. I really like that. Absolutely solid outcome, and even indoors, just about as good, even if not better for the lighting conditions. So I'm very, very pleased with that. But let's get into the low light condition photos. This would be with flash and without. But it was very, very dark this time, more than usually, and that's why it doesn't maybe look that great, because the other pictures, as you can see, at least are very good. No complaints here, everything looks fine, quite nice and sharp. We have OIS, if I didn't get that wrong, and that's why you don't need the steadiest hand. But you can see outside, it's where this camera absolutely knows to shine, because I definitely like the saturation a lot. The autofocus is very reliable, also quite working well with the shutter, quite fast as well, and it just picks up so many details. And that is something that you will see in my comparison with the Huawei P10 side by side. It picks up so much more details, so much more contrast, higher dynamic range, and overall so much nicer pics that I would say this is most probably one of the best cameras out there. It's not perfect, but it's damn near close to that and fully satisfying. I really can't say anything else about it. So I'm highly impressed what I've got here. Of course, it was extreme light and therefore some things have clipped, but yeah. About the video though, that is something that I just call really good, because as you can see, the video mostly is quite sharp and very smooth. Transition maybe not perfectly smooth and not super subtle, but therefore a nice autofocus that works very well. It's the picture that just in general tends to look a little bit fuzzy. It's also quite shaky, but I'm not quite fully impressed. I'm fully satisfied because, as you can see, it works reliable, and overall it just knows to deliver quite a nice experience. But it's not quite mind-blowing as the front-facing camera and also the back camera is. But I would say let's just jump into the pros and cons. Here I have to point out definitely the great build quality, and especially since this phone also feels smaller than most 5.5-inch phones out on the market, with, as I already said a few times, the best-in-class fingerprint reader, and that one actually also acts optional as a nav bar replacement. We have a great display, pretty much one of the best ones out there, but it could be even better. I still prefer what I've seen on the Huawei P10. We have a really good speaker and a top-notch flagship performance no matter what the discussion in the media is. Great battery life, at least on mobile data. The cameras in terms of selfie is great. In low light, very good. Probably one of the best in terms of photo cam, and still really good for video. Now what's not that great? Since it is a metal phone, at least for me, it sometimes tends to be quite slippery. One of the issues is for me also no proper oleophobic coating, but that along with the screen dimming bug is in brackets because it could get fixed, but it is still listed since it's still present on my phone. In my opinion also the IPS glow is not quite flagship worthy. The battery on Wi-Fi is just about good. The headphone jack is average. I've talked so many times about it, don't really sure what I should say anymore. I just want them to improve on that part. Then we have a very flaky standby rain, which was kind of an issue for me. Slightly lazy autofocus in terms of the front cam, but not an issue. And the device is quite expensive. So before we'll get to the conclusion, let's talk about the differences to the Huawei P10. What do you get for at least about 170 euros more? Obviously, you get the bigger phone, even though it doesn't even really feel that much bigger, which is in some way already an advantage. You also get the higher res display, even though maybe not higher quality, and even though it's just maybe slightly better, it is better after all. What is also better, even though even significantly, is the speaker, because it's louder and it sounds nicer because we also have some kind of front-facing stereo speaker feel. The headphone jack is pretty much the same. Performance also, even though we have more RAM now and the multitasking therefore is better. Gaming performance though maybe just ever so slightly takes a hit. Battery life is also significantly better. The software is pretty much the same and the camera also is significantly better. So overall, is it worth the at least 170 euros? I don't know, that's something you have to decide, because if you just see what you get for about 100 more on Samsung's side, you get just the bigger phone. But in this case, you get the bigger phone, but you get more storage, you get more RAM, and you get overall actually noticeably better qualities. Of course, if it is worth it, it's just something that you can decide. I really can't judge it so much. I think it's quite a lot, but if you want the best possible phone and a little bit of a bigger one, I guess it could be worth it, but it's not cheap. At around 700 euros still at the moment, it is definitely quite a hefty price, but compared to the rest that I see, it is still, after all, well worth it, because I still have to say that I'm not fully blown away by this phone. But so I'm not of the LG G6, and I don't think I will be of the S8. So maybe this year I had too high expectations from what we've seen last year, also especially compared in terms of battery life and so on, or I expected something drastically better. But overall, it definitely delivers. All qualities are on a high level. Yes, there are a few quirks, like I said, the oleophobic coating and so on, and some things could be fixed, and it's nothing really drastic. But maybe that's enough why I'm not quite super excited about it, but I see the benefits, I see other phones, and it definitely holds up quite well with that. But those just have some maybe advantages, or at least the name or the branding or something that has an advantage over that. I really can't judge it. I'm a little bit actually surprised myself that I just don't feel quite what I should expect, at least objectively see. Maybe it is just some minor things like the coding and so on that puts me off personally. But objectively, yeah, I think I gave you all the information that you need to decide on that. And if you want to let me know what you think, do that down in the comments. Maybe also leave a subscription and a like. But otherwise, that's it.